I never imagined that my own flesh and blood would be capable of turning my home into a prison of silence and lies. That afternoon, when I hid behind the living room curtain, I saw something that shattered my soul into pieces. My son, Mason, pulled a wad of bills from his pocket and handed them to Leo, my 8-year-old grandson. The words that came out of his mouth froze my blood. "This is what you earn for keeping your mouth shut. But if Grandma discovers the truth, it is all over for you and for me." My grandson's eyes did not show joy. They showed pure terror. His little hands trembled as he received that dirty money, and I, hiding like a thief in my own house, felt the world crumbling beneath my feet. What truth was so terrible that my son needed to buy a child's silence? What kind of monster had the baby I raised with so much love and sacrifice become? My name is Eleanor. I am 61 years old, and all my life I believed that family was the most sacred thing in the world. I worked since I was 15 years old, cleaning other people's houses, to give Mason everything I never had. I broke my back doing heavy labor. I saved every penny. I deprived myself of everything. When his father abandoned us, I raised that boy alone, with my bare hands and my heart. I paid for his college. I supported him when he married Chloe. I helped them with the down payment on their house. When Leo was born, I was there, at the hospital, being the first to hold my grandson. From that day on, my life revolved around them. I watched Leo 3 times a week, took him to the park, made his favorite meals, helped him with his homework. Chloe worked long shifts at the hospital, and Mason always had important meetings. I never complained. For me, taking care of my grandson was a gift from heaven. Seeing his smile when I arrived to pick him up from school filled me with life. I thought I was being the best grandmother in the world. How foolish I was. How blind I had been all this time. Everything began to change 3 months ago. Small things that at first seemed insignificant. Mason started arriving later than usual when he came to pick up Leo. Always in a hurry, always nervous, checking his phone every 2 minutes. I noticed he was different, more distant, colder with me. When I asked him how he was, he responded with monosyllables. "Fine, Mom. Busy, Mom. We will talk later." We never had time to talk. Leo changed too. The cheerful and chatty boy I knew started staying quiet. He stopped telling me about his day at school. When I tried to hug him, he would tense up. His little eyes always seemed to be looking for something, as if he were afraid someone was watching him. One afternoon I asked him if everything was okay at home, and his answer left me frozen. "Grandma asks too many questions," he said in a voice that did not seem like his own. Those were not the words of an 8-year-old child. Someone had taught them to him. I started noticing strange things in my own house, small objects that disappeared and then reappeared in different places. The money I kept in the cookie jar in the kitchen was diminishing without explanation. At first, I thought I was becoming forgetful. It is just age, I told myself. But then I found my bedroom door ajar when I was sure I had closed it. My important documents, the ones I kept in the desk drawer, were disorganized. Someone had been going through my things. I felt a shiver run down my spine. In my own home, the place where I should feel safest, someone was invading my privacy. I confronted Mason about this, and his reaction was strange. He went pale, then furious. He accused me of being paranoid, said that no one had touched anything, that maybe I needed to go to the doctor to check my memory. The way he said it, with that condescending tone, hurt me more than any physical blow. Last week, something happened that set off all my alarms. I arrived early at Mason's house to pick up Leo. I had a key, as I always had. I entered, calling out to them, but no one answered. I heard voices coming from the study. I approached without making noise. I do not know why. Something in my instinct told me I should not announce my presence. Mason was talking on the phone with someone, and his words left me breathless. "I told you it is only a matter of time. The old woman is starting to ask questions, but I have her under control. The kid knows what he has to do. She already signed several documents without realizing it. She thinks they are papers from the bank. By the end of the month, everything will be ready." My heart was beating so hard I thought he would hear me. What documents was he talking about? What had I signed without realizing it? I backed away in silence, left the house, and waited 10 minutes before entering again. this time making noise, calling out with a cheerful voice, as if nothing had happened. Mason came out of the study with a smile that did not reach his eyes. "Mom, what a surprise. You are early." He kissed me on the cheek, and I felt like I was kissing a stranger. That night I could not sleep. I tossed and turned in bed, reviewing every conversation, every strange gesture, every moment when something did not fit. I remembered that 2 months ago Mason had asked me to sign some papers. "It is to renew your medical insurance, Mom." Pure routine. I trusted him. I signed without reading, because he was my son, because I never imagined he could harm me. Now those signatures haunted me. What had I actually signed? I got up at 3 in the morning and searched through my documents. I did not find any copies. Mason had taken everything. Panic started to climb up my throat like a poisonous vine. The next day, I went to the bank where I have had my savings account for 30 years. I asked the teller to show me the movements of the last 3 months. What I saw took my breath away. Withdrawals of $1,000, $2,000, $500, amounts that I had never taken out. My signature was on every slip, but I did not remember making any of those transactions. "Are you sure this is my signature?" I asked the teller with a trembling voice. She compared it with my identification and nodded. "It is identical, Mrs. Eleanor. Is there a problem?" I left the bank with my legs shaking. Someone was robbing me, and that someone had access to my signature, to my documents, to my entire life. I decided I needed answers. I could not keep living in this uncertainty that was consuming me from the inside. I spoke with Margaret, my lifelong friend, the only person I could trust completely. We have known each other since we were girls. We have been through everything together. I told her what was happening, and I saw the concern on her face. "Eleanor, this is serious. You have to investigate, but be careful. If Mason is doing what I think he is doing, it could be dangerous for you to find out." Her words scared me, but they also gave me strength. I was not going to sit idly by while my own son destroyed me. Margaret suggested that I start documenting everything, that I keep evidence, that I stay alert to any suspicious behavior. "And please," she said, taking my hands in hers, "be very careful. Children who steal from their mothers are capable of anything." It was then that I decided to do something I never thought I would do in my life. Become a detective in my own family. I began to observe every detail, every movement, every word Mason said when he came to visit me. I set up a notebook where I wrote down everything that seemed strange to me. Dates, times, suspicious conversations. I felt ridiculous at first, as if I were betraying my own son. But then I remembered that phone conversation I heard, the missing money from my account, Leo's terrified look, and I knew I had to keep going. One afternoon, while Mason was in the bathroom, I checked his phone, which he had left on the table. My heart was beating like a war drum. I found messages with someone named Harper talking about deadlines, payments, and something called the plan. I could not read much because I heard him coming out of the bathroom, but it was enough to confirm that something very dark was happening. Leo became my biggest concern. Every time I saw him, he seemed thinner, more scared, more distant. One afternoon, while I was preparing his favorite snack, he sat in the kitchen with that lost look that distressed me so much. "Grandma," he said in a voice so quiet I barely heard it, "is it true that you are sick?" I froze with the knife in my hand. "Sick? Who told you that, my love?" I saw him swallow hard, saw his little eyes fill with tears. "Dad says you are sick in the head. He says that is why you forget things and ask the same thing many times. He says soon you are going to have to go to a place where they take better care of you." I felt as if I had been stabbed in the chest. Mason was putting those ideas into his own son's head. He was making him believe his grandmother was losing her mind. I knelt in front of Leo and took his hands. "Listen to me well, sweetheart. Grandma is perfectly healthy. I am not sick in the head, nor am I going anywhere. Do you understand me?" But I saw in his eyes that he did not completely believe me. They had already brainwashed him. That night I called Chloe. I needed to know if she was aware of what Mason was plotting. When she answered, her voice sounded tired, distant. I asked her how things were at home, if she had noticed anything strange about Mason lately. There was a long silence on the other end of the line. "Eleanor, lately, Mason is very stressed with work. He arrives late, he is irritable, he locks himself in the study for hours. I have noticed strange things too, but when I ask him, he says I am being paranoid. He says the stress is affecting me. My daughter-in-law sounded defeated, scared. Chloe, I need you to do me a favor. I need you to check Mason's papers, the documents he keeps in his study, without him realizing it. I heard her inhale deeply. I do not know, Eleanor. If he finds out, I do not know how he is going to react. I told her about the missing money, about the conversation I heard, about what Leo had told me. There was another silence, and then a trembling sigh. Give me a few days. I will see what I can find. Meanwhile, I decided to do my own investigation. I hired a locksmith to change the locks on my house. If someone had a copy of my keys and was entering without my permission, they could no longer do it. Mason's expression when he came to visit and his key did not work was revealing. Mom, you changed the lock. His voice had an edge of contained fury. Yes, son. The lock was old and I decided to change it. Why? Do you need to come in when I am not here? I saw him clench his jaw. No, of course not. It just seems strange that you did not tell me. I gave him a sweet smile that I did not feel. I did not know I had to ask your permission to make changes in my own house. I saw something dark pass through his eyes, something that made me feel a chill. This was not the boy I had raised. This was a stranger wearing my son's face. 2 days later, Chloe appeared at my door. It was early in the morning. Mason was at work. She entered quickly, looking over her shoulder as if she were being followed. In her hands, she carried a brown folder that she held against her chest, as if it were the most valuable thing in the world. Eleanor. I found this hidden in the study, behind some books that Mason never reads. I sat on the sofa because I sensed my legs were not going to support me for much longer. She opened the folder and started taking out documents. First, I saw my signature. Once, twice, 3 times. Documents I had never seen in my life. A power of attorney declaring me incompetent to handle my own affairs. A loan application for $50,000 in my name. Documents for the sale of my house. My house. The house I worked for 40 years to keep. Mason was selling it without me knowing. Tears began to roll down my cheeks without me being able to stop them. There is more, Chloe said with a broken voice. She took out an envelope containing photographs. The first ones were of Mason, with a woman I did not know. A young woman, maybe 30 years old, with long red hair and a bright smile. I saw them hugging, kissing, entering an apartment together. My son had a mistress. But that was not the worst part. The next photograph took my breath away. Mason was with the same woman, and she was pregnant. Clearly pregnant. Her belly was enormous. This woman is named Harper, Chloe said, wiping away her tears. Mason has another family. He has been with her for 2 years. The baby must be about 6 months old by now. He keeps her in an apartment on the north side, all with the money he has been stealing from you. I felt the world spinning around me. Mason was not just robbing me. He was destroying his marriage, betraying Chloe, lying to Leo, and using my money to maintain his double life. How did you discover this? I asked with a hoarse voice. Chloe sat beside me, trembling. A month ago, I found a receipt from a baby store. When I asked him, he said it was for a friend's son. But something did not add up. I started following him. I hired a private investigator with money I had saved in secret. The photographs arrived 3 days ago. I have not slept since then. I took her hand. 2 women broken by the same man. Chloe, I need your help to stop him. This is no longer just infidelity. This is fraud, theft, forgery of documents. My son is committing serious crimes. She nodded with determination. I am going to help you. For me, for Leo, for you. Mason cannot get away with this. We reviewed every document carefully. The power of attorney was dated 2 months ago, just when Mason had made me sign those papers for the supposed medical insurance. The documents for the sale of my house were ready. They only lacked the buyer's signature. Mason had set a ridiculously low price, $300,000 for a house that was worth at least $600,000. Clearly, he wanted to sell fast, keep the money, and disappear. The loan application had already been approved, $50,000 that Mason had received in my name, and that I would have to pay back, or lose my house trying. My son had turned me into his perfect victim. An older woman, alone, trusting. He thought it would be easy. He thought I would never find out. He was wrong. I called Margaret that same afternoon and asked her to come immediately. When she arrived and saw all the documents scattered on my dining table, her face went pale. "My God, Eleanor, this is worse than we imagined." Chloe explained everything while I prepared coffee with trembling hands. I could not stop thinking about how we had reached this point. My own son, the person I trusted most in the world, was systematically destroying me. Margaret took the documents and reviewed them carefully. She had worked as a paralegal for 20 years before retiring. She knew these things better than anyone. "Eleanor, you need a lawyer. And you need one now. These documents look legal on the surface, but if we can prove you signed under deception, we can annul them. But we have to move fast. If Mason completes the sale of your house, it will be much harder to reverse." My heart raced. Time was running against me, and I was just waking up to the nightmare that had been unfolding under my nose for months. The next day, Margaret took me to a lawyer she knew from her old job. His name was Benjamin, a man of about 50, with graying temples and a gaze that inspired confidence. I showed him all the documents Chloe had found, told him about the missing money, about Mason's double life, about how he had manipulated Leo. Benjamin listened in silence, taking notes, and when I finished speaking, he sighed deeply. "Mrs. Eleanor, your son is committing several serious crimes: fraud, document forgery, misappropriation of funds. He could face criminal charges, but to get to that, we need solid evidence. The photographs and documents are a good start, but we need more. We need proof that you signed those papers without knowing what they really were. We need recordings, witnesses, anything that demonstrates there was deception." I leaned forward. "Tell me what I have to do. Anything. I am not going to let my son destroy me without a fight." Benjamin explained the plan. First, we would file a formal complaint with the bank for the unauthorized withdrawals. Second, I would confront Mason, but with a hidden recorder, to try to get him to confess what he had done. Third, we would request a court order to freeze any transaction related to my house and my bank accounts. "It is going to be difficult," he warned me. "Mason is going to be furious when he realizes you found out. He could become dangerous. I need you to be prepared for that." I nodded, although inside I felt terror. This was my son, the baby I had carried in my arms, whom I had sung lullabies to, whom I had nursed when he was sick. Was he really capable of causing me physical harm? He had already proven he was capable of destroying me emotionally and financially. Why would he stop there? That night, alone in my house, with the new locks that made me feel a little safer, I searched every corner looking for something else that could help me. In the back of my closet, I found an old box containing photographs of Mason as a child. I saw him smiling toothlessly, hugging me at his first communion, graduating from college with that pride in his eyes. Where had that boy been lost? At what moment did love turn into greed? When did he decide that my life was worth less than his comfort? Tears blurred the photographs as I held them. I wept for the son I lost, for the relationship we would never have again, for the trust shattered into 1,000 pieces. But I also wept with rage against myself for having been so blind, so naive, so willing to believe that family love was unbreakable. The next morning I woke up with a new determination. I was no longer the scared victim. I was a woman who was going to fight for what was hers. I went to the bank and filed the formal complaint for the fraudulent withdrawals. The manager attended to me personally and reviewed every transaction. "Mrs. Eleanor, we are going to initiate an immediate investigation. In the meantime, we are going to freeze your account and open a new one that only you can handle. You will need to create a new password and not share it with anyone. Do you understand?" "With anyone," I nodded firmly. "Not even with my son." The manager looked at me with compassion. "Especially not with your son." When I left the bank, I felt I had taken the first real step to reclaiming my life. I was no longer the confused old lady Mason wanted everyone to believe I was. I was a warrior. Margaret helped me buy a small recorder that I could hide in my clothes. We tested it several times at her house until we were sure it worked perfectly. "When you talk to Mason, you need to ask him direct questions," she instructed me. "Ask him about the documents you signed. Ask him about the money. Make him talk. Arrogant men like him cannot resist bragging about how smart they think they are." Chloe was also working on her end. She called me every night to report Mason's movements. Today he left work early. He said he had a meeting, but I know he went to see Harper. He arrived home smelling of women's perfume. He does not even bother to hide it anymore. The rage in her voice was palpable. My daughter-in-law was also waking up from her own deception. We decided that the perfect moment to confront Mason would be the following Sunday, when he traditionally came to my house for lunch. I asked him to come alone, without Leo. "I need to talk to you about something important," I told him over the phone. I heard the tension in his voice when he replied, "What is it about, Mom?" My voice sounded firmer than I felt. "It is about some papers I found. I prefer to speak in person." There was a tense silence. "Okay, I will be there Sunday at 2. When I hung up, my hands were shaking. In 3 days, I would confront the man I gave life to and who was now trying to take mine away. Fear and anticipation consumed me equally. Saturday night I hardly slept. I mentally rehearsed every question I had to ask, every possible reaction from Mason, every escape he might try to use. Benjamin had given me clear instructions. Stay calm, no matter what he says. Do not accuse him directly until he has admitted something. Play confused, the old lady who needs his help to understand these complicated papers. Let him think he still has control. It was a dangerous game, a dance where one false step could ruin everything. I got up several times during the night to check that the recorder was working, that it was well hidden, that the battery was charged. Margaret had found me a blouse with an internal pocket perfect for hiding it. No one would suspect a thing. Sunday arrived with a gray sky that seemed to reflect my mood. I prepared Mason's favorite meal, as I always had. Pot roast with potatoes, fresh salad, and the dessert he had loved since he was a child. Everything had to look normal. Everything had to make him lower his guard. At 2 o'clock sharp, the doorbell rang. I breathed deeply, turned on the recorder hidden in my blouse, and opened the door. Mason was there, with that fake smile I had already learned to recognize. "Hi, Mom. It smells delicious." He kissed me on the cheek, and I had to make a superhuman effort not to pull away with disgust. This man had kissed his mistress, held his secret baby, signed documents to steal everything from me, and now he was kissing me as if nothing had happened. The hypocrisy churned my stomach. We ate in uncomfortable silence. Mason checked his phone constantly, probably waiting for messages from Harper. I pushed the food around on my plate, unable to swallow anything. When we finished, I served coffee and sat across from him in the living room. "Son, I need your help with something." I saw his eyes sharpen, attentive. "I found some papers in my documents and I do not understand well what they are. I thought you could explain them to me." I took out copies of the documents Chloe had found and put them on the table. I saw the blood leave his face. His hands closed into fists. "Where did you find that?" His voice had lost all warmth. It was no longer my son asking. It was the criminal caught in his lie. I kept my voice calm, although inside I was trembling like a leaf in the middle of a storm. I was organizing my papers and found them mixed with other things. "I do not remember signing this. Mason, explain to me what they are." I saw his brain working at full speed, looking for an exit, fabricating a convincing lie. He cleared his throat, and his expression changed to one of false concern that gave me nausea. "Mom, these are the medical insurance papers you signed 2 months ago. Do you not remember? I explained everything to you at that moment. We were right here, in this living room." He pointed to the power of attorney. "This document is so I can help you handle your medical affairs if you ever need it. It is something all people your age should have." The condescension in his voice was like poison. He was treating me as if I were a senile old woman who understood nothing. I continued with my act of confusion. "But here, it says that you can make decisions about my finances too. Why would you need to do that?" Mason leaned forward, taking my hands in his. His hands were cold, sweaty. "Mom, we did it because lately you have been very forgetful. The other day you forgot to pay the electric bill. Last week you left the stove on. Chloe and I are worried about you. This document is just a precaution, to protect you." Every word was a perfectly constructed lie. He was painting me as incompetent, as someone who needed to be rescued from herself. "And this other document?" I showed him the loan application. "Why do I need a loan of $50,000? I have never asked for loans in my life." Mason's jaw tightened. I was cornering him, and he knew it. That loan is to make repairs on your house. Mom, the roof has leaks. The pipes are old. We talked about this. Do you really not remember? His tone was now more aggressive, more desperate. Mason, I said softly. My roof is perfectly fine. It does not have leaks. And the pipes were changed 3 years ago. Why are you lying to me? I saw something dark cross his face. The mask of the concerned son began to crack. He stood up abruptly, walked to the window, turned his back to me. When he spoke again, his voice was cold as ice. I am not lying to you. It is you who does not remember things. It is you who is losing your mind. Chloe and I have noticed how you are getting worse every time. You repeat the same stories, forget entire conversations, call us in the early morning for no reason. I stood up too, feeling rage beginning to replace fear. I have never called you in the early morning. I never forget conversations. And never, listen to me well, never have I repeated stories. What is happening is that you need everyone to believe I am losing my reason. You need them to think I am a poor, confused old woman, so you can steal everything from me without anyone suspecting. Mason spun around abruptly. His eyes shone with a fury I had never seen before. Steal? Is that how you thank me for everything I have done for you? I have sacrificed my time, my energy, taking care of you, visiting you, worrying about you. And now you accuse me of being a thief. He approached me with threatening steps. Those papers are for your own good. The loan money I need to pay debts that you created. Yes, Mom, debts. You bought things you do not remember. You gave your banking information to scammers over the phone. I have been cleaning up your messes for months. Every accusation was more absurd than the last. But he said them with such conviction that for a moment I doubted myself. That was how his manipulation worked. He made you doubt your own reality. Show me the debts, I told him with a firm voice. Show me the bills for those purchases I supposedly made. Show me evidence that I gave my information to scammers. Mason let out a bitter laugh. The evidence is in the bank statements, the withdrawals, the transfers. Everything is there. I crossed my arms. Yes, it is there. Your forged signature, your withdrawals, your systematic theft of my life savings. I saw him pale. I do not know what you are talking about. If there are withdrawals, it is because you authorized them. Probably you do not remember. Like you do not remember so many other things. I decided to change tactics. Tell me about Harper. The effect was immediate. Mason stood completely still, as if he had been turned to stone. Who? His voice was barely a whisper. Harper. Your other family. The woman with whom you have a baby. The reason you need my money. I saw all the blood leave his face. His lips trembled. I do not know what you are talking about. You are delirious. This confirms exactly what I have been saying. You are losing your reason. Mom, you need professional help. But his voice lacked conviction. He had been hit where it hurt most. His best-kept secret had been exposed. Does Chloe know you are cheating on her? Does Leo know he has a little brother out there? Mason approached me with clenched fists. For the first time in my life, I was afraid of my own son. Listen to me well, you meddling old woman. His voice was a low, threatening growl. You do not know what you are getting into. My private life is not your problem. What I do or do not do does not concern you. He grabbed my arm tightly. You are going to sign the papers I tell you to sign. You are going to stay quiet, and you are going to stop asking questions. Because if you do not do it, I am going to put you in a psychiatric asylum so fast you will not know what happened. I have the documents that prove you are incompetent. I have statements from people who will say you are losing your mind. No judge is going to believe you. Every word was a blow. But it was also exactly what I needed him to say. The recorder, hidden in my blouse, was capturing every threat, every implied confession. Are you threatening me? I asked, needing him to be more explicit. Are you telling me you are going to lock me in a mental hospital if I do not let you rob me? Mason released me abruptly and I stumbled back, rubbing the arm where he had grabbed me. Surely I would have a bruise. It is not robbery, he said with a more controlled voice, realizing he had gone too far. It is protection. I am protecting your assets from yourself. When we sell the house, the money will go to a secure account. You will live comfortably in a place where they take good care of you. You will not have to worry about anything. He looked at me with a mixture of pity and contempt. This is the best thing for you, even if you cannot see it now. Someday you will thank me." The coldness in his eyes made me understand that he really believed what he was saying. He had justified his betrayal so completely that in his twisted mind, he was the hero of this story. "Get out of my house," I told him with a trembling but firm voice. "Leave right now and never come back." Mason gathered his phone and keys. Before leaving, he turned to me. "This is not over, Mom. The papers are signed. They are legal. There is nothing you can do. In 2 weeks, this house will no longer be yours, and you will be where you belong, in a place where they take care of crazy old women like you." He slammed the door so hard the pictures on the walls shook. I let myself fall onto the sofa, shaking from head to toe. But amidst the terror and pain, I also felt something else. Triumph. I had gotten the confession I needed. Mason had condemned himself with his own words. With trembling hands, I took out the recorder and verified that it had recorded everything. The little red light was blinking. The complete conversation was there. Every threat, every admission, every cruel word. I called Benjamin immediately. "I have it," I told him when he answered. "I have his recorded confession. Everything." I heard his sigh of relief on the other end of the line. "Excellent work, Eleanor. Bring it to my office tomorrow, first thing. We are going to prepare the formal complaint. With this recording, we can stop the sale of your house and possibly file criminal charges against Mason." Then I called Margaret, then Chloe. I needed them to know I had taken the hardest step, that the war had officially begun, and that, for the first time, I had real ammunition to fight. That night I checked my arm. The bruise was already starting to form. Dark marks in the shape of fingers where Mason had grabbed me. I took photographs from all angles. Evidence. Everything was evidence now. Every lie, every threat, every act of violence. I was building a case so solid that Mason could not slip out of it, no matter how hard he tried. I looked at myself in the bathroom mirror. The woman looking back was no longer the naive grandmother I had been 3 months ago. She was someone stronger, tougher, more determined. The pain of betrayal still broke my heart, but it no longer paralyzed me. It propelled me forward, toward justice, toward vengeance. Mason had awakened something in me he never knew existed. He had awakened a fighter. Monday morning, I arrived at Benjamin's office with the recorder, the photographs of my bruises, and all the documents I had collected. Margaret accompanied me because my hands were shaking so much I could barely hold my purse. Benjamin received us with a serious expression and showed us into his private office. He listened to the complete recording 3 times, taking detailed notes on each playback. When Mason said in the recording, "I am going to put you in a psychiatric asylum so fast you will not know what happened," Benjamin hit his desk with satisfaction. "This is pure gold, Eleanor. Threat, coercion, implied admission of fraud. With this and the forged documents, we have a solid criminal case." He began typing quickly on his computer. "We are going to file 3 things this very day. First, a temporary restraining order against Mason. Second, a motion to annul all the documents you signed under deception. Third, a criminal complaint for fraud, forgery, and threats." While Benjamin worked on the legal documents, he explained exactly what was going to happen in the coming days. Mason is going to receive notification of the restraining order probably this afternoon. He will not be able to approach you, call you, or contact you in any way. If he does, he goes straight to jail. The motion to annul the documents will take a few weeks, but with the evidence we have, I am very confident. The criminal complaint is more complicated. The district attorney will have to review the case and decide if he proceeds with charges. But with this recording and the forged documents, I believe they will. I felt overwhelmed by everything. The legal system was a maze I did not fully understand. Benjamin must have noticed my expression because he put his hand over mine. "I know it is a lot, Eleanor, but you are strong, and you are not alone. We are going to fight this together until the end." When we left Benjamin's office, Margaret took me to breakfast at a quiet diner. I had not eaten anything since the day before, and my stomach was growling, although anxiety made it hard to think about food. "You have to stay strong," Margaret told me, while forcing me to eat a sandwich. "What comes now is going to be hard. Mason is not going to sit idly by. He is going to counterattack, He is going to try to make you look like the crazy woman he says you are. She took my hand across the table. But you have something he does not have. You have the truth. And the truth always wins in the end. I wanted to believe her words, but fear gnawed at me from the inside. Mason was smart, manipulative, convincing. What if he managed to convince a judge that I really was losing my reason? What if his lies sounded more credible than my truth? My phone rang. It was Chloe. Her voice sounded terrified. Eleanor, Mason just arrived home furious. He is destroying things, screaming that you betrayed him, that you ruined him. He says you are going to pay for this. I took Leo and we locked ourselves in his room. I am scared. I have never seen him like this. My heart raced. Chloe, listen to me. Take Leo, get out of that house right now and go to a safe place. To your parents' house, a friend's, anywhere. Mason is receiving the restraining order today, and he is going to get worse. It is not safe for you to be there. I heard background noises, things breaking, Mason's voice shouting obscenities. Go through the back door if necessary, but get out of there. Chloe was crying. Where are we going to go? This is our house. The desperation in her voice broke my heart. Come to my house. The 2 new locks will keep us safe, but get out of there now. Half an hour later, Chloe and Leo arrived at my door with a small suitcase. My grandson had red eyes from crying. I knelt in front of him and hugged him tight. My love, everything is going to be okay. Grandma is going to take care of you and your mom. Leo clung to me with desperate strength. Dad was very mad. He broke the TV. He was yelling your name, Grandma. He was saying ugly things. I took him to the sofa and cuddled him against me. Chloe let herself fall into a chair, shaking. I do not know what to do. Eleanor, that man is not my husband. My husband would never act like that. It is as if Mason were possessed by a demon. I told her about the restraining order, about the criminal charges that would be filed. I saw how she processed the information, how the reality of what was happening finally hit her with full force. My marriage is over, isn't it? She said with a hollow voice. It ended a long time ago, I replied softly. Only neither of us knew it. That afternoon, while Leo took a nap in my guest room, Chloe and I sat down to talk seriously about the future. I'm going to file for divorce, she said, with a new determination in her voice. And I am going to fight for full custody of Leo. Mason is not mentally stable to care for a child, and I definitely am not going to let my son be near that woman and that baby. I asked her if she needed a lawyer, and she told me she had already contacted one that morning, before Mason arrived home. I have been preparing for this since I discovered the thing about Harper. I opened a secret bank account, kept copies of all our financial documents, took photos of everything valuable in the house. I am not leaving this marriage with nothing. My daughter-in-law was stronger than I had thought. Mason had underestimated the 2 most important women in his life, and that would be his biggest mistake. Chloe's phone kept ringing. It was Mason, calling again and again. She had blocked him, but he kept trying from different numbers. Text messages started arriving. We read them together. Chloe, stop being dramatic and come home. You are making a huge mistake. You are brainwashing him with my mother's lies. If you do not come back today, you are going to regret this. Do you want to be left with nothing? Because that is what is going to happen. You are a terrible wife, a terrible mother. Leo needs me and you are using him as a hostage. The messages became increasingly aggressive, more threatening. Chloe was pale reading them. You should show these messages to your lawyer, I told her. They are evidence of harassment and threats. They are going to help you in the custody battle. She took screenshots of every message. We were building a case against Mason from every possible front. At nightfall, the doorbell rang. The 3 of us froze. Chloe took Leo in her arms. I looked through the peephole and saw a police officer. I opened the door cautiously. Mrs. Eleanor Ramirez? I nodded. I am here to inform you that the temporary restraining order against Mason Ramirez has been served. He was notified 2 hours ago. He cannot approach within 200 yards of you. If he does, call 911 immediately and he will be arrested. He handed me a copy of the order. I also want to report that the subject was in a state of extreme agitation when he was notified. He made verbal threats against you. Those threats are documented in the report. Do you feel safe in your home tonight? I looked back. where Chloe was holding a sleeping Leo. My daughter-in-law and my grandson are here with me. We changed the locks a few days ago. I think we will be fine, the officer nodded. Even so, we are going to increase patrols in your neighborhood tonight. Anything happens, do not hesitate to call. After the officer left, the three of us sat in the living room in silence. The weight of what was happening was overwhelming. My son, the man to whom I had given life, was being treated like a dangerous criminal. And he was. That was the hardest part to accept. Mason was dangerous. For me, for Chloe, maybe even for Leo. The perfect family I thought I had built was an illusion. It had been a lie for years, and I had been too blinded by love to see it. Chloe broke the silence. Do you think he was always like this? Or did something change him? I thought about that question for a long while. I think the seed was always there. The greed, the selfishness, the lack of empathy. But I excused him. I justified him. I allowed it. Every time he behaved badly as a child, and I let it pass. Every time I gave him money he had not earned. Every time I put him above everything else. I helped create the monster he is now. Chloe shook her head. No, Eleanor. You loved him as every mother loves her son. He made his own choices. He chose to lie, steal, cheat. That is on him, not on you. But I was not so sure. Doubts gnawed at me. At what moment did I lose my son? Were there signs I ignored? Could I have done something different? The questions tortured me relentlessly. Margaret arrived later that night with food, because none of us had eaten dinner. She also brought extra blankets and pillows. You are going to stay here until this is resolved, she said with authority. Eleanor, your house is big. There is room for everyone. And there is safety in numbers. She was right. That night, with Chloe and Leo sleeping in the guest room and Margaret on the sofa, I felt a little less vulnerable. But even so, every noise from the street made me jump. Every shadow that passed in front of the window made me hold my breath. I could not sleep. I lay awake, staring at the ceiling, reviewing every moment of Mason's life. Where had it all started to go wrong? I remembered when he was 12, and I caught him stealing money from my purse. I had slapped his hand and made him promise me he would never do it again. He cried and promised. But he did it again and again. And I always found excuses. He is just a child. He is going through a difficult phase. His father is not here, and it is affecting him. I never held him truly accountable. I never taught him that actions had consequences. And now, 40 years later, I was paying the price for my weakness as a mother. Mason had learned that he could get away with it, that tears and empty promises were enough to escape punishment. And that lesson had become the foundation of his entire adult life. Lying, stealing, manipulating, and always getting away with it. The next morning I woke up to the sound of voices in the kitchen. Chloe was preparing breakfast while Margaret played with Leo at the table. The scene was so normal, so domestic, that for a moment I could pretend everything was fine. But reality hit me quickly when I saw my phone. I had 20 missed calls from unknown numbers and an avalanche of text messages. Ungrateful mother. You are going to destroy your own family for money. You are a manipulative liar. Mason only wanted to help you, and this is how you repay him. The messages were cruel, vicious. Mason had started his counterattack. He was telling his version of the story to anyone who would listen. Surely he was painting me as a senile old woman, a bitter mother inventing stories. And people believed him because he was charming, convincing, the perfect son in the eyes of the world. Benjamin called me mid-morning. Eleanor, I need to warn you about something. Mason hired a lawyer, a seemingly expensive and aggressive lawyer. They are going to try to discredit the recording. They are going to say you edited it or took it out of context. They are going to present witnesses who will say you have memory problems. They are going to fight dirty. I felt my stomach contract. How dirty? Benjamin sighed. They are going to try to get your medical reports. They are going to interview your neighbors. They are going to look for anything that can be used against you. Mason is going to try to prove that you really are mentally incompetent. It is important that from now on, you document absolutely everything. Keep a diary of your daily activities. Keep all your receipts. Be impeccable in everything you do. Do not give him any ammunition. I hung up, feeling overwhelmed. This battle was going to be much harder than I had imagined. That afternoon, I received an unexpected visit. My neighbor Dorothy knocked on the door with a worried expression. Dorothy had lived in the house next door for 15 years. We had always been kind to one another, although we were not close. "Eleanor, I need to talk to you about something important." I showed her in and served her coffee. Dorothy was wringing her hands nervously. "A man came to my house this morning. He said he was a lawyer and was doing an investigation about you. He asked me many questions. If I had seen you confused, if you forgot things, if you left the door open, if you went out in inappropriate clothes. I told him none of that was true, that you are one of the most lucid and organized people I know." I felt a wave of gratitude toward this woman. "But there is something else you need to know," Dorothy continued. "I have seen Mason entering your house several times when you were not there. About 3 months ago, I saw him with a key, entering on a Tuesday morning. I know that on Tuesdays you have your book club. I saw him leave half an hour later with a box." My heart raced. "Why didn't you tell me before?" Dorothy looked ashamed. "I thought maybe you had given him permission. I thought it was something normal between mother and son. But when that lawyer came today asking weird questions, I started putting 2 and 2 together. And then I remembered something else." She leaned forward. "About 6 weeks ago, I saw Mason leave your house with a woman, a young woman, pregnant. She was carrying papers in her hands. The two of them looked very nervous, looking around as if they did not want to be seen. They got into a car quickly and left. Harper. Mason had brought his mistress into my house. Fury flooded me like boiling lava. What else had they done here? What other secrets did my walls hide? Dorothy, would you be willing to testify to this? To tell my lawyer what you saw?" She nodded without hesitation. "Of course, that man is abusing you, and it is not right. I am going to help you in whatever you need." I called Benjamin immediately and told him about Dorothy's testimony. I could hear the excitement in his voice. "This is excellent. Eleanor, an independent witness who can confirm that Mason had unauthorized access to your house, that he was seen removing property, that he brought a third person without your knowledge. This destroys his narrative that he was only taking care of you." We scheduled a meeting for the next day. After hanging up, I sat down to think about what Dorothy had said about the box Mason took from my house. What was in that box? I started mentally reviewing my belongings. Jewelry. My mother had left me some valuable pieces when she died. I ran to my room and opened the jewelry box I kept in the back of the closet. Empty. Completely empty. My mother's pearl necklace, the diamond earrings, the antique gold brooch, everything had disappeared. Mason had stolen even my mother's memories. Tears began to roll down my cheeks. It was not just the monetary value. Although those pieces were easily worth $30,000, it was the sentimental value. It was the only thing I had left of my mother. Chloe found me crying on the floor of my room, the empty jewelry box in my hands. She knelt beside me and hugged me. What happened? I showed her the empty jewelry box and told her about my mother's jewelry. I saw her expression pass from compassion to fury. That bastard. Surely he sold them to support Harper. Or worse, he gave them to her. The very idea churned my stomach. My mother's jewelry on that woman's neck. It was a desecration, an unforgivable betrayal. "We are going to get them back," Chloe said with determination. "We are going to get back everything he stole from you. And he is going to pay for every tear he has made you shed." Her strength gave me strength. She was right. I could not stay here crying over what was lost. I had to keep fighting, keep seeking justice. The next day, Dorothy came to Benjamin's office and gave her official testimony. Benjamin recorded everything and had her sign a sworn affidavit. "This testimony is gold," he told us after Dorothy left. "It proves that Mason had unauthorized access to your house, that he was seen removing property, that he brought a third person without your knowledge. This destroys his narrative that he was only taking care of you." But there was more news, and it was not so good. Mason's lawyer filed a motion to dismiss the restraining order. He says the recording was obtained illegally, that you violated privacy laws by recording without his consent. My heart sank. Can they do that? Can they throw out the recording? Benjamin shook his head. "In this state, you only need the consent of one of the parties to record a conversation. That party was you. The recording is completely legal, but they are going to try anyway. It is an intimidation tactic. The following days were a whirlwind of legal activity, depositions, affidavits, endless documents. Benjamin prepared me for what would come when we had to go to court. Mason is going to be there. His lawyer is going to question you. They are going to try to confuse you, to make you appear forgetful or confused. They are going to ask you about events from years ago, specific dates, detailed conversations. If you do not remember something, it is okay to say, "I do not remember." Do not invent answers. Do not let them pressure you to say things that are not true. We practiced again and again. Difficult questions, trap questions, questions designed to make me stumble. At first, I got nervous and made mistakes, but with every practice I became stronger, surer. I learned to breathe, to take my time, not to let them rush me. Meanwhile, the psychological war continued. Mason had started using the extended family as weapons. My sister, who lived in another state and only spoke to me once a month, called me furious. "How can you do this to your own son?" Mason told me everything. "He says you are inventing horrible things about him because you are jealous of his new life. He says you need psychiatric help and that you refuse to receive it." I tried to explain the truth to her, show her the evidence, but she did not want to listen. "You were always overprotective of Mason. You always controlled him too much. Now that he has his own life, you cannot stand it." She hung up without letting me respond. My own cousin, whom I had not seen for years, sent me a message saying I was an embarrassment to the family. Mason had woven a web of lies so complete that people who barely knew me felt entitled to judge me. But there were also positive surprises. People I thought would be on Mason's side turned out to be my allies. Leo's teacher called Chloe to offer herself as a witness. I have noticed worrying changes in Leo over the last few months. He is more withdrawn, more anxious. Several times I found him crying, and when I asked him what was wrong, he said he could not speak or his dad would get mad. That seemed like a sign of emotional abuse to me. Her testimony would be crucial in the custody battle. Mason's accountant, a man named Gregory, who had handled my son's finances for years, also reached out. "Mrs. Eleanor, I need to speak with you about something that has been weighing on my conscience." He came to my house one night, nervous and sweating. Mason asked me to do some things that were not legal, transfers of money that did not add up, fake invoices, diversion of funds. At first, I did it because I thought he knew what he was doing. But then I started to suspect he was stealing money from someone. I never imagined it was from his own mother. Gregory brought with him a box full of documents, account statements, transfers, receipts, everything meticulously organized. "Here is everything. Every dollar Mason moved in the last 2 years. You will see transfers to accounts you will not recognize. One of them is Harper's account. Mason has been sending her $3,000 monthly for a year and a half. There are also transfers to pawn shops. Probably that is where he sold your mother's jewelry." My heart beat forcefully while I reviewed the documents. It was a goldmine of evidence. "Why are you doing this?" I asked Gregory. "Why are you betraying your client?" He looked miserable. "Because what he is doing is wrong, and because Mason threatened me when I told him I no longer wanted to be part of this. He told me if I spoke, he would involve me in his legal problems, that he would make it look like I was the brain behind everything. I cannot live with that threat over my head. I prefer to tell the truth and face the consequences." Benjamin almost jumped for joy when he saw the documents Gregory had brought. "This is incredible. We have a complete paper trail of all of Mason's crimes, documented fraud, illicit money movements, proof of the double life. The district attorney is going to love this." We scheduled a meeting with the prosecutor for the following week. Meanwhile, Benjamin warned me that we should prepare for Mason's counterattack. With all this evidence piling up against him, he is going to get desperate. And desperate men do dangerous things. His words turned out to be prophetic. 2 days later, at 3 in the morning, the sound of breaking glass woke me up. I jumped out of bed with my heart racing. Chloe came running out of the guest room. "What was that?" We went down the stairs carefully. The living room window was shattered. On the floor, surrounded by glass, was a rock with a note tied to it. With trembling hands, I picked up the note and read it. "This is just the beginning, you stupid old woman. Withdraw everything or next time it will be worse." I called the police immediately. They arrived in 10 minutes. They took photographs, collected the rock and the note as evidence, checked the neighborhood. "Do you have any idea who could have done this?" asked one of the officers. "My son. There is a restraining order against him, but I think he violated it." I showed him the restraining order and the threatening note. The officer frowned. "We are going to go talk to him. If it was him, he is going to be arrested." But when they went to Mason's house, he was not there. Chloe told them he was probably with Harper. She gave them the address of the apartment on the north side. They found Mason there, but he denied everything. "I was here all night. Harper can confirm it." And of course, Harper gave him the perfect alibi. Without proof that he had been at my house, they could not arrest him. But the incident was documented. Another piece of the puzzle falling into place. I hired a company to install security cameras around my house. If Mason tried something again, he would be captured on video. They also installed motion sensors and an alarm connected directly to the police station. My house was turning into a fortress. Chloe hired private security to patrol our neighborhood during the night. The fear was constant now. Every noise startled me. Every shadow was a potential threat. Leo had nightmares every night. I heard him scream in his sleep, calling his dad, asking why everything had changed. It was heartbreaking to see such a small child carrying so much trauma. Chloe took him to a child therapist who diagnosed him with severe anxiety caused by the toxic environment in his home. The therapist's report would be another weapon in the custody battle. The meeting with the district attorney was intense. Benjamin presented all the evidence: the recording, the forged documents, Dorothy's testimony, Gregory's financial records, the photographs of my bruises, Leo's therapist's report, the rock, and the threatening note. The prosecutor, a man of about 40 named Alexander, reviewed everything meticulously. After 2 hours, he finally spoke. "Mrs. Eleanor, you have a very solid case. We are going to proceed with criminal charges against Mason Ramirez for fraud, document forgery, theft, threats, and violation of a restraining order. He could face up to 15 years in prison if found guilty on all charges." 15 years. My son could spend 15 years in jail. A part of me felt horror at that possibility. But another part, the part that had been betrayed and abused, felt a dark satisfaction. Justice was finally arriving. The charges were officially filed a week later. Mason was arrested at his office, handcuffed in front of his colleagues. Chloe told me later that several co-workers called asking what had happened. The news spread like wildfire. The perfect son, the successful businessman, the exemplary family man, turned out to be a criminal. Mason paid the $50,000 bail and left jail that same night. But the damage to his reputation was already done. His company put him on administrative leave immediately. His clients started canceling contracts. The castle of lies he had built was crumbling stone by stone, and I was there, watching the fall of the son I once loved with all my heart. Then came the day I had been waiting for and dreading at the same time. The preliminary hearing. Benjamin had prepared me exhaustively for this moment. "Mason is going to be in the room. He is going to try to intimidate you with his gaze. Do not look at him. Keep your eyes on the judge or on me. Answer only what they ask you. Do not elaborate. And remember, you have the truth on your side." I entered the courtroom with Margaret and Chloe at my sides. And there he was. Mason. He looked haggard, hollow-eyed, furious. Our eyes met for a second, and what I saw in his froze my blood. Pure hatred. My son hated me. The child I had carried in my womb, whom I had breastfed, whom I had raised with all my love, now looked at me as if he wanted to erase me from existence. I looked away quickly, feeling nauseous. Mason's lawyer was exactly as Benjamin had described him. Aggressive, condescending, manipulative. When my turn to testify came, he attacked me immediately. "Mrs. Ramirez, isn't it true that your memory has been failing lately?" I breathed deep. "No, that is not true. But didn't you forget to pay your bills last month?" "I did not forget to pay them. I decided not to pay them until I reviewed the charges because I noticed discrepancies." "Discrepancies or confusion on your part." Benjamin stood up. "Objection. Your Honor, the counsel is being argumentative." "Sustained. Rephrase the question." Mason's lawyer changed tactics. "Mrs. Ramirez, Isn't it true that you voluntarily signed the documents in question? I signed them, yes, but they told me they were medical insurance documents. I did not know it was a power of attorney or documents to sell my house. And you expect us to believe you did not read what you were signing? Isn't that negligent on your part? I felt the trap closing. If I said I did not read them, I seemed incompetent. If I said I read them, then I knew what I signed. I trusted my son, I said finally. The documents were in complicated legal terms. My son explained to me that they were routine, and I trusted him. That trust was betrayed. The lawyer smiled like a shark. Or maybe the documents were explained to you correctly, and you simply did not understand them due to your advanced age and your cognitive decline. Benjamin objected again. The judge sustained it, but the damage was done. The seed of doubt had been planted. The interrogation continued for another hour. Questions about my mental health, my memory, my cognitive capabilities. Every question designed to make me seem senile, confused, incompetent. But I stood firm. I answered clearly, calmly, without letting myself be intimidated. When the interrogation finally ended, I was exhausted but felt I had fought well. Then Dorothy testified. She described exactly what she had seen. Mason entering my house when I was not there, leaving with boxes, bringing the pregnant woman. Mason's lawyer tried to discredit her. And what were you doing observing Mrs. Ramirez's house so carefully? Are you a meddling neighbor? Dorothy looked directly at him. I am an observant neighbor, and when I see something suspicious, I notice it. I do not need to be meddling to realize when someone is acting furtively. Gregory testified next, presenting the financial documents, explaining the illegal transfers, the secret accounts, the diverted money. His testimony was devastating for Mason. I saw how my son sank deeper and deeper into his chair with every revelation. The lawyer tried to argue that Gregory was an accomplice and was testifying to save himself. But Gregory stood firm. I am here because what we did was wrong, and I am willing to face the consequences of my actions. But I am not going to let Mason destroy his own mother without telling the truth. The hearing lasted all day. When it finally ended, the judge announced that he would take a week to review all the evidence before deciding if the case would proceed to trial. Benjamin was optimistic. You did excellent, Eleanor. You stayed calm, answered well, didn't fall into the traps, and our witnesses were solid. I think the judge is going to see the truth, but I was emotionally and physically exhausted. Seeing Mason there, hearing his lawyer's lies, reliving all the trauma, had been harder than I imagined. That night I cried until I ran out of tears. I cried for the son I lost, for the destroyed family, for the innocence snatched away. Chloe hugged me while I cried. Cry all you need, she whispered to me. But tomorrow we get up and keep fighting. Because we are going to win this. I promise you. During that week of waiting, I tried to keep busy, not to go crazy with anxiety. Margaret took me for walks in the mornings. She forced me to eat even if I was not hungry. She distracted me with stories about her grandchildren. Chloe was immersed in her own divorce process. Her lawyer had filed the papers, and Mason had received them with fury. He tried to call her hundreds of times, sending her increasingly desperate messages. Do not do this, Chloe. Think about Leo. Think about our family. But she remained firm. The woman who had been submissive and compliant for years had finally found her backbone. There is no family left to save, she told me one afternoon while we drank tea. The family died the day he decided his comfort was worth more than our trust. She was right. Some things, once broken, cannot be repaired. And trust was one of them. On the 5th day of waiting, I received an unexpected call. It was Harper, Mason's mistress. Her voice was young, nervous. Mrs. Eleanor, I need to talk to you. It is urgent. Every instinct told me to hang up, that I did not want to know anything about the woman who had helped destroy my son's marriage. But curiosity won out. What do you want to talk about? There was a long silence. About Mason. About the lies. About everything. I agreed to meet her at a neutral coffee shop the next day. I told Benjamin about the meeting, and he insisted on accompanying me. We do not know what she is plotting. It could be a trap from Mason. But something in Harper's voice had sounded genuine to me. She sounded scared, desperate. I decided to take the risk. Harper arrived at the coffee shop carrying a baby of about 6 months. She was younger than I thought, maybe 25 years old. She looked tired, with deep circles under her eyes and wrinkled clothes. The baby, a boy, had Mason's eyes. Seeing him was like receiving a punch in the stomach. This was my grandson, a grandson I would never know, product of an unforgivable betrayal. Harper sat in front of me with nervous movements. "Thank you for coming. I know you have no reason to listen to me." Benjamin, sitting next to me, had his recorder ready. "This conversation is being recorded," he warned her. Harper nodded. "That is fine. I want you to record. I want everything to be on record." She took a deep breath and began to speak. "Mason lied to me. About everything." Her story was devastating. Mason had met her at a bar 3 years ago. He told her he was divorced, that his ex-wife was problematic and prevented him from seeing his son. He painted an image of himself as a victim, as a dedicated father fighting against a vengeful woman. Harper, young and naive, believed him. "I fell in love with his lies," she said, with tears rolling down her cheeks. "He promised me we would build a life together, that when he resolved his legal problems, we would get married." Mason rented her the apartment, gave her monthly money, visited her 3 or 4 times a week. When she got pregnant, he seemed happy at first. But after the baby was born, everything changed. He started coming less. He always had excuses, and the money he gave me decreased. This month he only gave me $1,000. It is not enough to pay rent, food, diapers, everything the baby needs. Then Harper saw the news about Mason's arrest. I saw his photograph on the internet, the criminal charges, and I started investigating. I discovered he was never divorced, that he still lived with his wife and his son, that he was lying to them about me at the same time he was lying to me about them. She wiped her tears with rage. He used me. He turned me into his mistress without me even knowing it. I destroyed a marriage without wanting to, and now I am trapped with a baby, without money, without a future. Mason does not answer my calls. His lawyer contacted me and asked me to lie for him, to give him an alibi for the night they broke your window. He offered me $5,000 to lie, and I did it because I needed the money desperately. She lowered her head, ashamed. "But I cannot keep lying anymore. My conscience won't let me sleep." Benjamin leaned forward. "Are you willing to testify about all this? To tell the truth about the fake alibi?" Harper nodded. "Yes, I know it will probably get me in trouble for perjury, but I prefer to face the consequences than keep being part of Mason's lies." She looked at the sleeping baby in her arms. This boy deserves to grow up knowing the truth, not built on lies like his father. I was surprised to feel pity for this woman. She was also a victim of Mason, in her own way. He had manipulated, used, and discarded her, as he did with everyone. "There is something else you need to know," Harper said. "The jewelry. Mason gave me antique jewelry a year ago. A pearl necklace, some earrings. He said they were his grandmother's, that she had died and left him those pieces. I did not know they were stolen." My heart jumped. "You still have them?" Harper nodded. "They are in my apartment. I never use them because they seem too elegant for me. I can return them to you." Tears filled my eyes. My mother's jewelry. I was going to get them back. Benjamin quickly organized for Harper to bring the jewelry as evidence. We also agreed that her testimony about the fake alibi would be presented to the prosecutor. "I am going to speak with the prosecutor about your situation," Benjamin told her. "Given that you are cooperating voluntarily and providing crucial evidence, it is possible you may not face charges or that you receive a favorable deal." Harper looked relieved. "I just want to do the right thing. For my son. For me. And yes, also for you, Mrs. Eleanor. I am sorry for having been part of the pain Mason caused you, even without knowing it." 2 days later came the judge's decision. The case would proceed to trial. All evidence was admissible. The restraining order against Mason would be permanent. And there was more. Based on Harper's new testimony about the fake alibi, Mason was arrested again, this time without the right to bail. "He represents a danger to witnesses," declared the judge. "He has demonstrated a willingness to intimidate, threaten, and manipulate. He will remain detained until the trial." Seeing Mason being handcuffed and taken out of the courtroom filled me with contradictory emotions. Relief because he could no longer threaten me. Sadness because this was my son, my baby, being treated like the criminal he was. And yes, satisfaction. A dark and profound satisfaction of knowing that finally he was facing real consequences for his actions. The following weeks were a whirlwind of preparation for the trial. Benjamin worked tirelessly, preparing arguments, coordinating witnesses, reviewing evidence. Chloe received full temporary custody of Leo. The family judge, after reviewing the therapist's report and hearing the teacher's testimony, determined that Mason represented an emotional risk to the child. Until these criminal matters are resolved and Mr. Ramirez receives a full psychological evaluation, he will have no contact with the minor. Leo, surprisingly, seemed relieved. "I do not have to keep secrets anymore?" he asked me one night. "No, my love, you do not have to keep any secrets anymore. You can speak about everything freely." I saw a visible burden lift from his small shoulders. Children should not carry the dark secrets of their parents. Mason had stolen his innocence, just as much as he had stolen my money. Margaret organized a small meeting in my house with all the women who had supported me during this nightmare. Chloe, Dorothy, Harper, and her own daughters. A circle of warriors, she called it. We sat in my living room, the same room where everything had started with that terrible confrontation, and shared our stories. Each of us had been hurt by Mason in different ways, but together we were stronger than his lies. Harper and Chloe, surprisingly, formed a strange friendship. "It was not your fault," Chloe told her. "You were deceived too. Mason is an expert at making women believe they are special, that they are the only ones. And then he uses us until we are no longer useful to him," Harper cried. "Your son is beautiful, Leo." Mason showed me photos of him sometimes. He said he missed him a lot. Now I know that was another lie. Probably he was with Leo while telling me he couldn't see him. The trial was scheduled to start in a week. Benjamin gave me the final instructions. "It is going to be difficult, Eleanor. The trial could last weeks. Mason is going to testify and say horrible things about you. His lawyer is going to attack your character, your mental health, your credibility. But we have the truth. We have solid evidence. We have credible witnesses. And we have justice on our side." The night before the trial started, I could not sleep. I sat in my living room, looking at photographs of Mason from when he was a child. The smiling boy he once was. Where had he been lost? At what moment did love turn into hate, kindness into cruelty, honesty into deceit? Maybe I would never know. Maybe it did not matter. What mattered now was ensuring he paid for his crimes, that justice was served, and that other mothers, other families, did not suffer what I had suffered. The day of the trial dawned gray and rainy, as if the sky were crying for what was about to unfold. I dressed carefully, choosing a simple but elegant suit. I wanted to look competent, lucid, strong, not the senile old woman Mason and his lawyer wanted to paint. Margaret helped me with my hair. Chloe made me breakfast, although I could barely eat a bite. "Today is the day," Chloe told me, taking my hands. "Today Mason faces the truth, and the truth always wins." I wanted to believe her words with every fiber of my being. We arrived at the courthouse early. The room was already full of people. Reporters, curious onlookers, family members. I saw my sister sitting on Mason's side and felt a pang of pain. Even now, even with all the evidence, she chose to believe him over me. But I also saw friendly faces: Dorothy, Gregory, Leo's teacher, neighbors who had known me for years. I was not alone. The trial began with the opening statements. Prosecutor Alexander presented the case in a clear and devastating way. "What you will see in this trial is a pattern of systematic abuse. A son who saw his elderly mother not as family, but as a resource to exploit. Mason Ramirez forged documents, stole money, manipulated an innocent child, maintained a double life, and when he was discovered, resorted to threats and intimidation. This is not a case of family misunderstanding. It is a case of criminal fraud, abuse of trust, and exploitation of a vulnerable person." Every word resonated in the room like a hammer of justice. Then Mason's lawyer spoke. His narrative was predictable, but well constructed. Mason Ramirez is a dedicated son who tried to protect his mother from herself. Mrs. Eleanor Ramirez suffers from cognitive decline that she herself does not recognize. The documents were signed with full knowledge. The money was used for her benefit. And when Mason tried to help, he was falsely accused by a confused and vengeful woman. The first days of the trial were a procession of witnesses. First, I testified. The prosecutor guided me through my story with clear and direct questions. I described my life, my relationship with Mason, how I started noticing the inconsistencies, the discovery of the lies, the recorded confrontation. When they played the recording in the room, I saw several jury members shudder upon hearing Mason's threats. "I am going to put you in a psychiatric asylum so fast you will not know what happened." His voice full of venom resonated in the silence of the room. Then came the cross-examination. Mason's lawyer attacked me for hours. "Isn't it true that you forgot your grandson's birthday last year?" "No, I did not forget it. I was sick with the flu, and we celebrated it a week later. But initially, you forgot the date." "I was sick, not confused." "Isn't it true that you repeated the same story 3 times at a family dinner?" "No, that never happened." "Are you sure?" "Because I have witnesses who will say otherwise." But I stood firm. Every accusation was refuted with calm and clarity. I did not let myself be intimidated or confused. Benjamin had done an excellent job preparing me. When the interrogation finally ended, I felt exhausted but victorious. I had not fallen into any trap. Then Dorothy testified. Her testimony about seeing Mason entering my house without my knowledge was crucial. The lawyer tried to discredit her, but she stood firm in what she had seen. "I saw what I saw. Mason Ramirez entered that house when his mother was not there, came out with a box, and weeks later I saw a pregnant woman with him at that same house." Gregory testified next, presenting the financial records, the transfers to Harper, the secret accounts, the diverted money, every transaction documented, every lie exposed with cold, hard numbers that could not be refuted. Then came the moment everyone was waiting for. Harper took the stand. She wore a simple dress, no makeup, looking vulnerable and honest. Her testimony was devastating for Mason. She described the relationship, the lies he told her, the fake alibi they asked her to give, the payment she received for lying. "Mason Ramirez was not with me the night they broke his mother's window. That was a lie. They paid me $5,000 to lie to the police. And I did it because I was desperate and scared. But I cannot live with that lie anymore." I saw how Mason shrank in his chair, his face losing all color. His lawyer tried to make it seem like Harper was a scorned woman seeking revenge. "It is not true that you are furious because Mr. Ramirez ended your relationship." Harper looked directly at him. "I am furious because he lied to me, used me, and discarded me. But that fury does not change the facts. The facts are that he asked me to lie, and I lied. And now I am correcting that lie." The testimony of Leo's teacher was particularly moving. She described the changes in the child's behavior, his growing anxiety, his comments about having to keep secrets. "Leo told me once that his dad gave him money for not telling his grandma things. When I asked him what kind of things, he got scared and said he couldn't talk about that. An 8-year-old child should not be carrying that kind of secret." Leo's therapist testified next, confirming the diagnosis of severe anxiety and post-traumatic stress caused by emotional manipulation. This child was used as a pawn in an adult game. He was pressured to lie, to hide information, to betray his grandmother's trust. The psychological damage is significant and will require years of therapy to heal. Several jury members had tears in their eyes. Finally, Mason testified in his own defense. It was a mistake. His natural arrogance could not be completely hidden. He tried to paint himself as a victim, as a sacrificed son trying to help a difficult mother. But under Prosecutor Alexander's cross-examination, his mask cracked. "Why did you need your mother to sign a power of attorney if you were only helping her?" "To protect her interests." "Protect them from whom? From herself? Or from you? That is not fair. Did your mother sign those documents knowing she was authorizing you to sell her house?" Mason hesitated. "She signed what she needed to sign." "Answer the question. Did she know what she was signing?" "I explained it to her." "Did you explain that she was signing authorization to sell her house?" Silence. "Answer, Mr. Ramirez." "I explained that they were important documents, That is not an answer. Yes or no. Finally, with a barely audible voice, no. That admission was the final nail in his coffin. The prosecutor continued pressing. Why did you give money to your son, Leo? To teach him financial responsibility. Teach him financial responsibility by telling him it was money for keeping quiet? That was misinterpreted. We have a recording where you say exactly those words. I was joking. Joking with an 8-year-old child about keeping secrets from his grandmother. Mason had no convincing answers. Every question sank him deeper. His lawyer tried to repair the damage in the redirect, but it was too late. The jury had seen through his lies. After 2 weeks of testimony, both sides presented their closing arguments. The prosecutor summarized the case brilliantly. Mason Ramirez saw his mother as a personal bank. He forged documents. He stole money. He manipulated an innocent child, and when he was discovered, he resorted to threats and violence. The evidence is overwhelming. The guilt is clear. The jury deliberated for 2 days. They were the 2 longest days of my life. I could not eat. I could not sleep. I could barely breathe. What if they found him innocent? What if his lies were more convincing than my truth? Finally, the message arrived. The jury had reached a verdict. We returned to the courtroom. My heart was beating so hard I thought everyone could hear it. The jury foreman stood up. On the charge of fraud, we find the defendant guilty. On the charge of document forgery, guilty. On the charge of theft, guilty. On the charge of criminal threats, guilty. On the charge of violation of a restraining order, guilty. Guilty. Guilty on all charges. I felt as if a mountain had been lifted from my chest. Tears began to flow freely. Chloe hugged me. Margaret wept with joy. Justice. Finally, after months of nightmare, justice had arrived. The sentence came a week later. The judge had no mercy. Mr. Ramirez, you betrayed the most sacred trust that exists, the trust between mother and son. You exploited your own mother in the cruelest way. You manipulated your innocent son. You lied systematically. You showed zero remorse. I sentence you to 12 years in prison, without the possibility of parole for the first 6 years. Additionally, you must pay full restitution of all stolen funds, plus interest. And you are prohibited from contacting the victim for life. 12 years. Mason was handcuffed and taken out of the room. At the last moment, our eyes met. There was no longer hatred in his gaze. There was something worse. Emptiness. As if he finally realized what he had lost. His mother, his wife, his son, his freedom, his future, everything destroyed by his own greed. I watched them take him away and felt a strange mixture of relief, sadness, and closure. The following months were of healing. I recovered all my money thanks to the civil lawsuits. I recovered my mother's jewelry that Harper returned. My house remained mine. Chloe and Leo moved in permanently with me. We became a new family, built on honesty instead of lies. Leo started smiling again, playing without fear, being a child. Therapy was helping him process the trauma. Chloe flourished without the weight of a toxic marriage. She got a better job, made new friends, regained confidence in herself, and I learned that it is never too late to be strong. That love must be accompanied by boundaries. That family is not an excuse for abuse. Mason chose his path, and I chose mine. A path of dignity, justice, and rebirth.